Great. So I've called my session The Art of Sales in CS because in my experience, it's more of an art than a science. So a little bit about me first. So I'm the VP of Customer Success at a company called Leadspace. I manage a team of 20. They're CSMs, support, solution architects, and data architects. I am a mom of a 17-month-old. I love wine. I should have written good wine, but truthfully, it's probably just wine. And I'm an occasional runner for sanity's sake. I wish I did more, but I do a bit. So today I'm going to start with why CS and sales is hard. I have to admit, it's an ongoing challenge for me and for our organization. I think it's a good challenge, and there's some good tensions that should be where they are. So I wanted to start there on why it's hard, and then talk a little bit about some of the framework we've put in place at Leadspace to make some of it easier, to have some key points where we engage together, and how we ensure that we're aligned on the same things. So first off, I'll talk from the customer success side on why I think CS and sales is hard. I think sometimes it can feel like, as a CSM within an organization, that you're having to defend off the rest of the company. Marketing wants referrals, and sales wants prospects to be speaking to your customers, or maybe they want to hit end-of-quarter numbers or end-of-month numbers by calling into your accounts. And it feels like you're constantly having to defend. So it feels like there's an agenda that you're constantly having to protect your customers against within the organization. And I think for those of you who are in CS already can feel like this tightrope that you walk of changing executive buyers and changing points of contact and changing initiatives and politics within the customer organization. It always feels a little bit like you're just having to precariously balance the customer account. And as other people are calling in, that can sometimes feel like it could be the one thing that breaks the camel's back. So there's this fear, I think, sometimes from the CS perspective. Also, too, one of the things that I have seen with my team is that we manage based on MRR, so I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But because we don't look at logos but MRR, the bigger a customer gets that's at risk, the more of a risk they become of churn, the more they hit your number when they're up for renewal. So if you have $100 up for renewal, and of that, $20 is at risk, and suddenly it becomes $50, then your MRR renewal suddenly gets a lot more at risk as a result of those. So it's counterintuitive to the foster and grow or land and expand type mentality you want CSMs to have, because it's actually safer. And I don't think they do it on purpose. I certainly know my team did not. But you can do it without even realizing that it just is safer to keep some of these at-risk accounts small. On the flip side, sales are given these aggressive numbers. So they're given numbers, whether it's a quarterly booking number, they're giving quotas that are tough to hit. And any good company that's growing should be seeing at least 30%, 40%, there's a lot of numbers out there, of growth from existing customer accounts. And it's a good thing. You want to be seeing that growth. So they're feeling like they're having to hunt into accounts rather than being brought in a lot of times. It can also feel like key events are happening with the customer. So it might be that a change of executive buyer has happened or a change of point of contact. And the CSM is maybe concerned that bringing in a salesperson with a different agenda might cause risk, so they don't include them. And actually, that's a really important thing for the salesperson to know. And spiffs. Spiffs are another one that I've seen go either way. We do spiffs at Leadspace, so we actually will spiff based on the percentage of MRR for upsell. And lots of different people have different theories on what works and what doesn't work with spiffs. But I've seen it go the opposite way, too. It actually works really well for us at Leadspace. But I have seen it go the opposite way in that CSMs will start actually realizing that if they don't include sales in things like executive business reviews, then they might have a better opportunity to find more of these opportunities and actually get more of the percentage for themselves. So it goes either way, and oftentimes sales can feel like they're having to creates almost a suspicious nature within sales if you're not careful. So I don't think this is a surprise to anyone. I think probably everyone has seen some of these in their accounts, or they know this already. If not, you will. So I guess the question becomes then, how do I drive the desired behavior? What are the things that we focus on as an organization that are actually going to drive alignment? And for us, that's about focusing on positive outcomes. So if sales and if CS are both focused on how do we keep a customer a happy customer so they stay a customer, then we find things kind of fall into alignment. And there are always going to be things that don't quite align. There's always going to be friction between the two teams, but I think some of that's a healthy friction too. So at Leadspace, sales is responsible for the growth and the partnering of CS and the renewal. And what that means, so our sales team actually land the sale. They do the upsell because we are a land and expand. But they also, too, are responsible for the renewal. And that renewal number is in their booking quota. And they have accelerators if the booking numbers within their quota hit at what our company gross renewal number is based at. So sales is not going to just over the fence something because they're going to spend a lot more time on the customers that maybe they shouldn't have sold to if they do. And it becomes a lot of their time that they don't want to spend. And also it means that that renewal, which is in their number, may not come through. On the flip side, we have our CSMs manage their renewals, actually looking at MRR. So we have monthly and quarterly forecasts. We look at the total MRR renewal for that CSM specifically that's up. And we work on what we call the path to renewal. So if the renewal percentage is 90%, then the CSM will forecast how they think their book is going to perform. And then actually these are the marked accounts that I'm going to focus more time in on this quarter with sales to ensure that we potentially bring these in to get us to our number. It benefits sales, it's in their quota, it benefits the CSMs, they're focused on that too. So it brings some alignment kind of from an MRR perspective that rolls up into what the business is looking at when it comes to gross renewal. And then sales within that runs any commercial conversation. So what I mean by that is the CSM will, of course, be speaking to the customer a lot more frequently, but sales are the ones who are brought in when we find an upsell opportunity or when we find or when we're coming up for renewal. CSMs will ask the soft questions. So you're up for renewal in 90 days. How are you feeling about things? But always bring sales in to have the negotiation. And I think this is a pretty standard model. But so that if there ever gets to be a negotiation that the customer isn't happy with, that CS can remain the trusted advisor and sales can be the one who's having what can sometimes be the more uncomfortable conversations with the customer. So I know Dominique spoke about some of this, but we have milestones that we look at that we ensure sales and customer success are aligned in. And our first milestone is the kickoff, but before that even happens, then the handover is incredibly important. And it's kind of, the way we liken it to is when you've called up AT&T to explain how frustrated you are about the service that hasn't been working. You spend 20 minutes telling them how challenging it's been, only to be transferred over to another department who hasn't gotten any of the context from the previous person, and they ask you to start all over again. And there's really nothing more frustrating, in my opinion, in the first moments with a customer than coming into a kickoff call where they say, tell us your business pains, or tell us what your goals are, where they clearly haven't transferred that knowledge within the organization. So we have a very basic 2-page customer transition form, and we look at things like who is the executive buyer, who are the influencers, who is the point of contacts, who are going to be our champions. We then look at things like what are their business objectives? What are the things that are going to show return on investment? The obvious things. But we also look at use cases too. So I understand that you came in because you're looking to do this. I understand that this is the way you're looking to use Leadspace within your organization. So we kick off from there. So when we have the kickoff call, we come in with that knowledge. We use that to dig a little deeper because there's questions that CS are going to ask in the kickoff call that sales wouldn't necessarily ask. So I understand that your goal is to increase your customers by 20% by knowing more about your customers with the Leadspace data we can provide. So help me understand, and we go through that. And sales is actually on that call. So we make sure we're completely aligned. A, so sales can have a deeper view into the customer. And B, so if the customer by any chance were to say, well, this isn't what I understood to be how the partnership was going to start, then we're all there in the same room to make sure that we get things right and kicked off on the right foot. After the kickoff, we do an end of onboarding review. I don't know if everyone does this. I would highly recommend it. One of the reasons why we do an end of onboarding review is because we've discovered that in the first few months of a customer becoming a customer, if you can capture them then, if something goes wrong, it probably takes a day. Depends on the issue, but it takes a lot less time to turn it around. But if a customer goes red in the first 3 months and you don't catch it till month 6 or till month 9, then you're talking weeks and months of time investment. And the longer you leave a customer with an issue, the more problematic it becomes. So at the end of customer onboarding, we have what we ask for as our first complete customer happiness moment, where we say to the customer, we've completed your onboarding, we've done your integrations, we've done your training. Are you 100% happy with what you've received? Are you 100% happy with the training you've received? And are you 100% happy with the data that you've seen so far? And we give the customer the opportunity to say no, and truthfully, we hear it sometimes. But it also then gives sales, who's a part of that conversation, and CS an opportunity to together say, all right, we're not on track, but here's how we're going to get on track. After that, we then have the executive business review. We do it at month 6. In my experience, this is the best opportunity in an account for upsell. So this is going to be the time where we run our executive business reviews like I think most people do. So here are your business objectives. Here's how you progress against them. And this is the return on investment that we're able to determine for you so far based on what you've done. In those instances, those are the best times for us to say, and here's where I think we can go together next. And then sales comes into that conversation to talk about growth. On the flip side, if things haven't gone very well, we use the executive business review to say, here are your goals. We appreciate that you probably haven't, that we know you haven't gotten there yet. But what we would suggest are these next steps to align things. And then sales stays close to that conversation so that in month 9, month 10, depending on the size of the customer, when we have the renewal business review, then we're looking at it saying, here's where we were at month 6. Here's what we either said we were going to do together, or here's the growth that we've seen, and what has been the impact of that then leads us into a renewal. And I think probably everyone does this, but we do it 120 days out to 60 days out, depending on the size of customer, so that, again, if things aren't necessarily going in the right direction, we have some time to turn them around before the customer's going to ultimately make that renewal decision. So along with that, then, we just have the ongoing stream of communication. And I wanted to talk a little bit about where we communicate and how. So we have a series of customer scorecards. And we actually have a weekly or a biweekly, depends on the team, renewal and at-risk meeting that we do with the sales team. Renewals, I think, are easy. I think sales are involved in renewals enough they kind of know what's going on. But the feedback that I got a lot was I don't know as a salesperson when there's risk in my own accounts. I don't feel that it's being bubbled up in a way that I can easily see it at a macro view. So we look at the scorecards together, we look at renewals that are 90 days out, and then we look at accounts that have risk, and we actually agree a joint action plan between the two teams. CSMs own the next steps on that, they own chattering on that, and I'll speak about chatter in a minute. And then sales partners in helping to execute that. When it comes to where we communicate, we have 2 primary platforms that we've chosen for communication. One is Chatter. So we use Chatter for meeting notes, we use Chatter for business reviews, at-risk plays, but only that. And the purpose is so that you can quickly look at a Chatter feed and you can see easily what's happening within the customer account. It's not full of back and forth and conversations. It's really a timeline of the customer. And then we use Slack for the day in, day out stuff. So we actually have a Slack channel per customer, which if you use Slack, I can't recommend it enough. We actually have our product teams who engage on that Slack channel. It's open to everyone. You can join what you want. When a new CSM or when a new salesperson joins the organization, Slack gives you all the historical data, so you don't have to worry about mining through emails to try and find things, which is incredibly painful if you've ever been there. So we use Slack for the day-to-day, for the ongoing chats, about the prep work that happens, for product questions, and then Chatter is that kind of point of record. And then ultimately, and this to me I think is the secret sauce in the art of sales and CS, is just really modeling good from the leadership level. I invest a lot of time in my relationship with our VP of sales. We get on well, and I spend more time with him than probably anybody else in our organization. We sit down all the time, impromptu, talking about some of the challenges we're finding between our teams, and we've never come across this before, but it's causing conflict. How do we want to solve it? And really, our relationship, my relationship with him, is what has made us a healthy organization. And that's not to say that we're without challenges. We certainly have them. But us investing in our relationship and really modeling what good looks like from the top has been what I think the teams see and then begins to set the precedent and the tone for what good can look like across an organization between the two teams. So takeaways, and I've got questions if you have them. So align on outcomes. What does good look like? You're not always going to agree on everything, but where are you trying to get together? Hand over well. Make sure the customer feels like you've gone into the conversation understanding what their challenges are, and sales are aligned in that. Partner in the key customer milestones. So for us, that was the kickoff, end of onboarding review, executive business review, and then the renewal meeting. And then as leaders, modeling a good working relationship starts with us. Great. Thank you. Yeah, questions?
Thank you so much. This was a great presentation. We have an ongoing debate within our sales and CS org. And can you tell us a little bit about your CSM to sales handoff? Does the sales rep email an introduction email, or what does that look like? And has it always been that way, or has it evolved?
Sure. We actually do, it's not necessarily scalable, but it is scalable, but it depends. It's a taste thing, actually, is a better way of positioning it. So we have the salesperson, they complete the onboarding form. Once it's all set up, then we actually send them out from Salesforce. We have an automated one that goes out that looks like it personally comes from me. So it welcomes them to the organization. It gives them some detail on things they're going to know for the kickoff. So here's the agenda. Here's a couple things to consider before. It's a formal introduction to their customer success manager on my behalf. And then a suggestion for them to reach out to me if they have any challenges as they go along. So it's an opportunity for them to immediately have a connection with an executive. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sorry, you need a mic.
So I had a question around the renewal number in the bookings for sales. And
Sure.
I'm curious, is that weighted the same as new business? And also what kind of conversation you had with the head of sales to convince them that it should be part of their quota?
Yeah, you bet. It isn't. It's a part of their quota, so yes, it is weighted the same. And actually, we do commission the same. So we didn't for a while. We had a different commission number for renewals than we did for net new. But what we found is that when push came to shove, a salesperson would prioritize the net new because it was a better commission, and I don't blame them. So we actually made that right last year and gave the same number for both so that there's equal weighting for the two. Yeah. And then, I'm sorry, the second half of your question. You know, truthfully, we've always done it that way. Yeah. So it was in us as an organization before I even joined. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
We're still in a model where CSMs are handling renewals.
Okay.
Were you guys ever at that stage, and how did you make the shift over to sales handling the renewals?
We were, yeah. So it was before my time, but we were. When we originally started, we just had one CSM, and they were doing the renewals. I think it probably was a blend of the CSMs we had in place were not necessarily that good at the negotiation piece. So they were great relationship people, but they didn't understand. A renewal is a lot like a sale. You know, so oftentimes you're having to resell some of the people. Potentially you've got new buyers in place, or they've, and it can also too be an awkward conversation if the customer isn't completely happy, and maybe the CSM is a little uncertain about asking for growth opportunities where they are there. So I think there's an argument to be made definitely for having sales be that, but you would need to see it in the numbers. You'd expect your renewal numbers to improve. Yeah. So one more? Oh.
Hi, Sherrod. I think this will be interesting for everyone, and I'd love to know, as your team scales and you're global, how are you having the sales team join every call for a kickoff? I know it's important, but I wonder about the scale, especially if it's a global company. Are you maybe time boxing how long the call is, or how is it working out with time differences, et cetera?
Yep, sure. So we actually, because the renewals are part of their quota, then with customers we have sales, the sales organization also scale. So we do have a certain number of salespeople per CSM. So that for us that still works. We haven't found ourselves in a place where we have not been able to do that. But yes, we absolutely time box those calls. 45 minutes is usually our best practice. So we try and do 30 if we can, but oftentimes as we're digging in, it goes a little longer. But we try and do 45 minutes tops. But yeah, the sales can't always make them, but as best practice, we try and set that as a precedent. Yeah. Cool. All right. Thank you, guys.